I spiked my hair up because I'm going to have a little bit of attitude. Last week you saw me get arrested for levitating on the beach. Although that's not what this was really about. This was about me not submitting to the authority of the officer when the officer decided to take away my First Amendment right. I'm an escape artist and I can break right free. So I didn't actually go to the police station. I actually got him to release me by being a little smart, realizing that this was about me questioning the officer's authority to take away my First Amendment right in front of a bunch of people. So really, once I apologized in the back of the cop car and I said, "Yes, officer, I'm sorry. I got a little carried away. You're right. I'm wrong." I listened to his lecture. I let him talk. And I told him that he was right. I gave him what he really wanted. You see, that's why he put me into the handcuffs, was because I was questioning him, because I was questioning his authority. Because in all honesty, he was taking away my First Amendment right. Now, when I was younger, my father gave me this is how to talk to a police officer talk. And basically what he explained to me is that being a police officer is a really tough, stressful job. You have to deal with the crappiest people in society, and it stresses you out. Actually, law enforcement and the military has the highest incidences of domestic violence out of any profession because, well, sometimes cops take their work home with them. You never know what that cop was dealing with before they're talking to you. And if you can be the calm, collected, nice person and speak to the officer in a kind way, they will appreciate you for it. If you can bridge that gap between a group of people that have ostracized themselves from the rest of society and show them that you view them as a civil servant that is protecting you and protecting your safety, they will appreciate you for it. If you say, "Yes, officer, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It won't happen again," they might not write you a ticket. Now, in this situation, I did not treat the officer with the respect that would have gotten me out of the ticket. I didn't do this because, well, I knew I was being filmed and I felt like the officer was infringing on my rights, and I wanted to show an example to everybody of what happens when you try to stand up for your rights when an officer is misinterpreting the law. Now, the city ordinance in question here that I supposedly had violated specifically governs the boardwalk area. Now, I was outside of the boardwalk area on the beach, so the spot where I was at is actually not governed by this law, the initial misinterpretation of the police officer. Secondly, in the definition of a performance, it used the terminology soliciting spectators for tips. I was not soliciting spectators for tips, so therefore whether or not I was performing as defined by the ordinance comes into question as well. You see, one of the big problems here is that the criteria used to hire police officers is all off. You see, values of empathy, problem-solving, critical thinking, compassion are not valued when hiring police officers. Values of assertiveness, loyalty, ability to follow orders, basically how much of a jerk you can be is what's valued, is what's important. And a lot of police officers actually have not been to college and they have below average IQs. These criteria needs to be changed. Police officers should be empathetic when they're hired. They should know compassion. I've been a victim of and I've witnessed police brutality on 3 occasions. Another time, I witnessed my 100-pound female roommate being brutalized in the back of a cop car. She was being grabbed by her hair, head jerked down to her knees, head jerked up side to side while she was screaming bloody murder and pain. She was given permanent whiplash by this bald officer from the Tucson Police Department named John Buckley. Now, because there was no video evidence, we couldn't press charges against the officer, and it was basically his word versus ours. And the cops that were on the scene all corroborated the same story, which was a lie. You see, police officers, they're in a brotherhood. They will lie to protect each other. And if a police officer breaks that brotherhood, they'll be outcasted. Video cameras have been put on phones, and so now we're seeing so many more incidences of police brutality, of abuses of power, of cops flat out lying. You see, before there were cameras on all these phones, it was the cop's word versus one person's word, and the judge would always side with the cop. This incentivized police in a bad way to where they felt like they could lie whenever they felt it necessary and get away with it. Now they can't. You see, police brutality was going on long before cameras were put on cell phones, but now because we've seen so many instances of police brutality on YouTube, well, now this has caused people to unite for change. This has caused our president, President Obama, to call for wide sweeping reform amongst police departments across the country.
I reject any narrative that seeks to divide police and communities that they serve. And that's why I've asked my outstanding Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, a former prosecutor, to work aggressively with law enforcement and prosecutors and leaders in these communities to find out exactly why is this happening, and then target resources where they will have an impact.
He's even appointed a task force that's analyzing and trying to work with police departments on solutions to end corruption within the police forces. Now, there are many departments across the country. I'll point out New York City, for example. When the mayor of New York called for reform within the police department, the police chief called out the mayor and said that the mayor was responsible for the gunning down of police officers in rage against police. He said that the mayor of New York was inciting protests and riots against the police. Now, this is wrong. This is a problem because the mayor is the elected official that represents the people. The mayor is in charge of the police. For the police to go against what the mayor is saying and to turn their backs on the mayor when he attends a funeral for police officers is basically the police department saying, we are not willing to change, there's not a problem here, we're going to continue going about the way that we treat people, even though they're abusing people. They have ostracized themselves from the communities that they are supposed to protect. You see, the whole movement of Black Lives Matter. Yes, black people are abused by police officers more than any other race. But this is partially because if you look at black communities, these are the communities that the highest disproportionate amount of officers actually live in other communities. Black communities have the most amount of white officers that are from the suburbs that come into this other community that they have no personal attachment to police. They don't know anybody in these black communities. The only people that they know are people that they're arresting. I saw in Europe police officers talking with and socializing with the general citizens, young people, people my age, while they were on duty. This is because they were part of these communities that they were policing. This is one of the most fundamental problems, is that when people are commissioned to police a people that they don't have a personal connection to, they're more likely to abuse them. Some of the other problems that I've noticed is all three of the officers that I've been witness to abuses of power were all bald, older cops that were the superiors. The incentive system within police forces incentivizes cops to be bad. They incentivize cops to issue more tickets, to bust more people, to get a promotion. This incentivizes cops to bust people when maybe they shouldn't be busted. Now, there's a lot of good cops that join the force because they want to protect and serve, because they want to make the streets a better place. They want to get the bad guys, get the criminals. But what happens when they're put into the system, they're put in a situation where the general populace that they've been commissioned to serve doesn't like them, because there's been so many abuses over time that the communities don't trust the police. They're put in a situation where they're out there trying to protect these people that don't want them there. Then they have these superiors which teach them bad lessons of how to abuse the people. When your superior is doing these bad actions, it teaches the rookie cops these bad actions. Secondly, a lot of cops just get jaded because they're having to deal with bad people all the time. They get jaded on the people and the communities that they are supposed to serve. If the police forces come to a position where they apologize to the communities and say, we want to work with you, we are here to serve you, we admit that there has been abuses in the past, we admit that there's been corruption with our own police departments, this will start to mend the imbalance that is present. But the police forces to this day are still unwilling to admit that there's a problem. They don't want to change. They want to continue with the system, the flawed system that currently exists, until the police forces admit that they need to change, that there needs to be reform, and apologize to the communities. These communities won't trust them, and the police forces will still continue to be ostracized in the areas that they are supposed to protect. I urge you, if you are a police officer, if you are a family member of a police officer, please show them this message. Amends of police forces is what is necessary, and reform